Hello, my name is Rebecca Locke. I work for Samuel Music and SIPS as a brass teacher. These videos are aimed at treble clef brass players. There will be different videos aimed at different standards of playing, dealing with different things that we come across as brass players. In this video, we will cover semiquavers, different types of articulation, and take an in-depth look at the Radetzky March. In grade 3, we begin to look at semiquavers. A semiquaver looks like this. It has a double tail, so it's a little bit like a quaver, but there's an extra flick. A semiquaver is worth a quarter of a crotchet beat. So for every crotchet, you can squeeze in 4 semiquavers. As always, in our warm-up, we're going to try and use this new knowledge so that we consolidate it before we start our practice. The rhythm that you can see is 2 crotchets, 4 quavers, 8 semiquavers and a minim at the end. And I'd like to do this on the D major arpeggio so that we're combining our scales and our arpeggios into our practice. To begin with, I'll play this rhythm just so that you're confident on how it should go. 1, 2. So that's the rhythm. To extend the technical difficulty of this warm-up and to aim to incorporate more aspects of technique, I would like to add some further articulation and dynamics into the task. You can now see the articulations marked in. The first 2 crotchets have a line underneath, and that means they should be played tenuto, which means smooth and full length. The 4 quavers have accents. This means they should be marked almost as if they've been played with a hammer. The semiquavers have staccato dots underneath. Don't just think of staccatos as short, try to think of them as spiky. The minim has a pause over it. You'll also spot some dynamics have been marked with a crescendo and a diminuendo. I'll play through the rhythm on the note D just to give you an idea of what I'm after. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now pause the video and have a go at this rhythm on all the notes of the arpeggio. I will now work through the Radetzky March, looking out for any tricky sections that will need practicing in isolation and then putting it together. Now, I had a plan when I set that warm-up, because today I want to look at a piece of music called the Radetzky March. It's by Strauss, and it's quite famous. It's one of the most commonly played brass band marches. If you don't know what a brass band is yet, perhaps you could talk to your teacher about joining some of the brass bands that are run by Samuel Music as an opportunity to get to play more with other people and look at even more music. The Radetzky March includes semiquavers, there are some accents, there are staccatos, and there's a massive crescendo with a lovely dynamic contrast of MP up to forte. There's also a key signature on this that tells me any B that I come across will be B flat. On top of that, I'm looking at this music and I can see there's some accidentals. There are some extra sharps and naturals. So there's quite a bit to think about. We'll start with the opening rhythm. 2 semiquavers followed by a quaver. Da da da. Did you know you can practice all the time even if you haven't got your instrument out? Just practicing that tongue technique, the da 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 da, and saying it. You could say it without the vocal sound, so it's just the tongue and the air. Becomes quite a useful tool when you get to the more advanced techniques. So, first rhythm. I need to make sure that my semiquavers are accurate. It's got to sound like a march. That was the right rhythm, but I don't think I made enough of the accents. I didn't make enough of the interest in that piece, and I definitely didn't play it forte. So, I've thought about what I've done, and I'm going to improve on it. That was definitely far more aggressive in terms of the tongue, but it didn't sound aggressive. It sounded very, very march-like, very strict. There is, in bar 3, a C sharp. It's not very often that we get to use all 3 valves when playing, so I'm going to break that down and isolate it. I've got D, C sharp, D, and then an E. I'm going to add the E in actually. So D, C sharp, D, E. Da, 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 da. I'm going to do that slowly. Could you tell what I was doing? I was slowly doing it to practice the finger movement, and then I sped it up, and when I felt confident with it, I added the next 3 notes. So, I feel like I could play the first 4 bars, so I'm going to go from the beginning, remembering my accents, remembering my style, and feeling confident on that finger dexterity. When we're at this level, it's important to break things down. Music is going to get progressively trickier as you move through the grades. I'm not expecting you to be able to play everything straight away. It's important to work out what the tricky bits are so we can practice them, break them down, make life easy, and then become a better player at the end of it as we put everything together. So, what else is tricky? The third valve. Now, our third finger is naturally the weakest, so our third valve is always going to be the weakest one. I can see we've got A, G sharp, A, G sharp, A. And making sure that that third valve goes down fast enough and isn't slow, isn't half valving because it's not pressing the valve down fast enough. So I'm going to take that out of the music and I'm going to practice it. A, G sharp, A. So I took it out, I practiced it tongued, I practiced it slurred. I feel like I can do it now. To consolidate what I have demonstrated so far, I will play the first 8 bars. Breaking down the music into sections like this helps to check for any areas that might need further isolated practice. There are some tricky intervals in this piece. I'm going to look at line 3 now, and I can see I've got some quite big jumps. I practice my lip flexibilities a lot, so I'm confident in my jumps between notes. I'm confident on these intervals, but I can still identify that they're going to be tricky. So we've got a G to a high E, all on open, and we've got an F to a D on first valve. If I was to play that using all the notes that I can get on those harmonics, I would play but the middle note of each of those isn't there. We don't want it. And that's the risk with this, is that we might hit that note accidentally. So think about the notes in your head, G up to the E, and practice it in isolation. Now I'm going to look at the F to the D. So I've practiced them separately, but in the march I have to play G to E and then drop down to the F on the next quaver. That's quite tricky. So I'm going to do it slowly and then build at the speed and practice the articulation as well, the staccato tongue. Feeling confident now. Looking through the rest of the music, I can see that something I practiced earlier, brilliant, because it's come back again with the A to the G sharp on that weaker third valve. And I'm feeling quite confident, but I want to make sure that my last 3 notes are impressive. It's quite a tricky piece, so when I want to get to the end, I don't want my last 3 notes to flop. The 3 Fs. They're forte and they're accented. Let's have a go. Okay, I feel like I've practiced all the tricky bits of this piece. So let's put it together. I'm going to perform the Radetzky March. I'll count it in though, so if you want to play along with me, please do. 1, 2.